There are no coincidences, only signs from the universe. And if you're watching this video, then it's not a coincidence. It's a sign from the universe. Yeah, it just sounds like I'm yapping right here. But like I said, this is wait one sec, we'll let the fire truck go by. All right, so welcome back to another video. Like I said, this isn't really planned. I'm just kind of yapping over here or self-reflecting, and I hope that you could take something away from it. So today's topic I want to talk about is coincidences or signs from the universe. And I know a lot of people like to look at miracles or and label them as coincidences. So for example, like uh, you missing the train and then you somehow end up finding the love of your life, or little things like that. You know, that things that are usually categorized as coincidences. Me, I personally see it as the universe playing its cards for you. And no matter where you are in life, I genuinely believe that, if you're rock bottom, or if you're just trying to get somewhere else, there's always a way out, right? And it starts by having your intention straight. And what I mean by that is, I think I mentioned this in my last video, is just being true to yourself and listening to your true instinct, right? And once you set your intent out and whatever you want to be, whether that's to become a basketball player or an author or whatever it is, once you're set, once you have that end goal in mind, like, yeah, I want to become an author, then you realize the way you perceive the world changes. But it all starts with you. You genuinely have to believe it. Like, no matter what life throws at you, you've got to stay optimistic. And I get it, right? Some people have it tougher than others, but just think of it as the universe testing your resilience. And one thing I want to point out is that it's similar to the theory how, when you buy a red car, right? Let's say you buy a red Civic and you're driving on the road, and all of a sudden you start noticing more red cars out there. And why is that? You could say, oh, it's just a coincidence. You could say it's the universe. But let's say you don't even want to look at it like that way. At the end of the day, neurologically, once something becomes apparent to you, you start noticing it more. So that's the same way I would say, just look at your aspirations. Once you have your set aspirations, you look around the world and you realize that it's already there, it's already around you, but you just had to wake your mind up to accept it. And with that, obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. It could happen over time. But this is something I said earlier, how once you kind of figure out what your passion is, what you want to do, the world becomes your library. And I would say, in my career, when it comes to filmmaking and acting, I noticed that once I had my intention set, I took everything as a sign. And this isn't any sort of delusion. You could call it delusion if you want, but, and by the way, delusion is not a bad word. I think if you think about it, all the greats were delusional. They say you couldn't, back in the 1900s, early 1900s, they couldn't say, they said you couldn't fly, and then the Wright brothers made a plane. I think it took Thomas Edison 1,000 tries to get the light bulb, something like that. But the point is, you have to see your ambitions as a painting. I like to use this analogy. So whenever a painter starts their art, it starts off with a blank canvas. And let's say I show you a blank canvas, I tell you I'm gonna paint a dragon. Obviously, when I show you this blank canvas, you're not gonna see anything, right? You're gonna be like, oh, what is this guy talking about? And then I slowly start, doing the outline, drawing some lines, just whatever. And you're not gonna see the dragon yet. And then you come back in about 6 hours, you start to see the outline, and you're like, okay, I kind of see it. And at the end, you finally see the full picture, and you realize that the idea of the dragon was always been there. It just took time and patience and just taking the necessary steps to get there. And I feel like that's the same thing with whatever goals you have. It's it may not happen overnight, but if you have that end picture, you could slowly build towards it and try to look at everything in your life Try to utilize everything in your life. Look at the world like an artist. Artists find inspiration from everything. They take inspiration from nature. They take inspiration from animals. Whatever's going on with the world. That's what I like to do with my movie scripts, or whenever I play a character. I like to take inspirations from the greats. Uh, I think Michael Jackson said this, or I'm not sure if he said this exactly, but he said, uh, "Learn from the greats and become greater." And that's the privilege you have, right? You've seen the greats come before you, so you could learn what worked for them and what didn't, and apply it to yourself. And there's not big difference between you and the greats, right? All they did was just kind of they pursued it. They just went forward with it, and that's the same thing you have to do. And yeah, and I'll be honest, I didn't really know what I was gonna say after this. But on a side note, it's a nice weather here. If you're out here in Toronto, Canada, it's a nice weather. Um, what else?